What's going on, everybody? Man, I am so excited. I told you guys a couple of weeks ago that we are starting 2 new live shows. This is one of them. This is called Rapid Fire Wednesdays. And Rapid Fire, we're going to be doing rapid fire features, rapid fire fun, rapid fire coaching, and rapid fire content. We are going to pack these periods of time with ways that we can actually help you. We're going to be interviewing people that are in their own positions where they've got things they want to break through. They want to live with no limits in their life. And we're going to help them real time on the show. Individuals who are willing to come in and be vulnerable and authentic with us to allow their truth to give you permission to live yours. We're going to show you by example how we actually start to unroot some of these things. We're going to feature some incredible people that you guys can learn from. Individuals that are breaking boundaries and living at the max of life in so many ways, typically very aligned as well. We're going to bring in some of my best friends. We're going to probably play some games because that's what the fun is all about. And then we're also going to rip on content, new ideas, and new ways that we can be serving you. So today is the very first show where we have the privilege of bringing in a guest. And I'm not going to give a big intro on this individual because I'm going to let him intro himself. But I will tell you that I have gotten to know Tommy over the course of the last couple of weeks. And Tommy has been an absolutely engaged individual in our world. Anytime we're going live, anytime we've got content, anything that's actually taking place, Tommy just seems to be there. And I always say that life is first about showing up. It's second, how we show up. And third, where we show up. And last week, we did the Era of You challenge. It was a 5-day challenge. And what we did was to help people to really understand the basics on feeling and healing, embracing the pains required to avoid suffering in their lives, to really go to a deep level of design and designing yourself, designing your life, designing your business, really focusing on the fundamental relationship that matters most in your world, which is the one with yourself, and using that to permeate into all the other relationships in your life. Then we really went through the inside out method to unroot, unpack, and move through our emotional triggers, behavioral patterns, and environmental conditioning that have kept us stuck and swirling. And then lastly, we really talked about how we can become a string and tie it all together. Tommy was with us last week. Tommy showed up. He showed up big, and he showed up in an engaged way. And so he's here today to talk to us just a little bit about what his experience was in that unique scenario, as well as to ask some questions. He's here today to learn, to grow, and to put himself into a position to be vulnerable and authentic, because vulnerability and authenticity are the glue that binds human connection. He's here to connect. He's here to learn and grow. And Tommy, man, I am so grateful for who you are and how you've shown up. So could you let everybody know a little about who you are at a high level? And then let's talk just for a brief second around maybe some of the takeaways that you had last week from Era of You. And then let's jump in and just start having a conversation and figure out ways that I can help you, brother.
Sure, man. I appreciate you. And the Era of You challenge was definitely that. It was a challenge for me. I have been very reclusive in the past little bit, and that helped me break out of my shell a little bit, talk about some of the problems that I've had and the, just stigmas, talking online like I'm doing right now. This is a big bugaboo for me. So I've never really experienced this before, but we're going to plow through it. And I know that you gave a very safe environment for me to be able to do that with the Era of You. And you gave so much information. You, Katie, George, all gave us information that was just valuable, and anybody that has the opportunity to soak in and spend time with you guys, they're only going to benefit. And I really cannot say enough how much I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you guys. And something that has really affected me in my past and has caused this reclusiveness is we lost our father in 2010 to suicide. And this being May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And we're talking about fun and all this stuff. I'm going to talk about something that's pretty serious because
okay, bro, that's what we're all about in our world.
Yeah, it really has affected me in a negative way, but moving past that is what you guys have been helping me do. And I just pulled up some stats from 2020 from the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention, and that's the last update that they gave. But I'm in the state of Missouri. We're ranked 15th in suicide deaths at 1,125. Suicide death is the third leading cause of death between the ages of 10 to 34. There's actually two age groups there, 10 to 24 and 25 to 34. It's the third leading cause of death. It's the fourth leading cause of death between ages 35 to 44, fifth leading cause of death from 45 to 54, and then it spikes up to 10th and 18th as you go up in the age groups. But, losing our father, that was kind of out of left field for us, and a lot of unpacked emotions and a lot of years where I just used substance, mainly alcohol, to just deaden everything. I was in positions. I was at the time managing a bar, which is probably not, the ideal position, but looking back, I used alcohol on a daily basis to numb that pain. And, 20 years ago, you didn't hear, people talk much about depression, especially not anxiety, but it seems like in the last few years, with all that we have going on with the pandemic, and, politics, inflation, all of these things, it seems like depression and anxiety are the prevailing themes of our times. And helping people get through and really understanding what's going on in their world, is kind of what you guys helped with the Era of You Challenge. And I'd like for you to kind of go through, some of the recognition steps that a person can recognize that, hey, I'm in a bad pattern here. There are some triggering emotions here that I've become a slave to. And, people, once they start recognizing that they're in those patterns, how can we break out of those? And yeah. I'll let you give your definition of triggering, because I feel like you can kind of expound on that a little bit and pick up when you're finished with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Tommy, first and foremost, I have to pause and just say, I am sorry for your loss. You may not know this about me, and although I've talked about this in many situations, it's not something that I necessarily broadcast across the world because it just totally depends. But when I was leaning into this world, when I was coming to a place where I decided that I was going to execute my buy sell, leave the risk management, employee benefits consulting world, when my wife gave me the nudge and pushed me out, one of the biggest things that really nudged me across the edge was that I had lost 6 men I knew in that prior year to suicide. So between 2018 and 2019,
sorry for your loss.
I had lost 6 men I knew to suicide. And most of them were individuals that were on the outside, had it all together, had their lives together, had everything that everybody ever wanted, families and, success from a financial perspective and stability, all these things, yet they were suffering silently inside. And one thing I have to say on this concept of suicide before we go any further is, one of the things that used to trigger me is when people would say, oh, that person was so weak because they took their life. They weren't strong enough to deal with it. And I really want to hit that right out of the gate, because what I don't think most people understand is that when the pain and suffering is so bad that the idea of taking your own life is the only alternative to end it, it's beyond strength at that point. Right. That's just purely trying to make sure that the pain and the suffering goes away. And I know individuals who were actually in inpatient facilities actively being treated and still could not escape the suffering that existed. So I have to start there, because our mission to impact over 1 billion lives, to allow people to be who they are, live with joy, freedom, and fulfillment holistically, is all connected to the fact that one of the things that I said back when is, who am I to be hustling and denying my natural gift in the world to chase money and the what's of the world and success? And I'll be really clear, I don't vilify money. It just wasn't in alignment for me at the time. Who am I to do those things if I'm in a position to impact or save someone's life? And so that was one of the big reasons that I executed my buy, sell, and left. So I had to hit that first, Tommy, because this is something that's near and dear to my heart. And I will tell you that just 3 weeks ago, after running this path, I've gotten a number of feedback. And I don't say this to impress. We're fortunate and blessed to have so many people coming to us, giving us feedback on the impact we've had, we've helped with their trajectory, what they've done. But for the first time 3 weeks ago, somebody actually used those words. Brian, the interaction with you and these concepts saved my life. And so that was a full circle moment that I just wanted to share, Tommy, because awesome. Although I knew that about you, hearing you talk about it and share the stats made me go a little bit deeper on the concept, because it's near and dear to my heart. So
well, one of the other stats that they threw on the website is that 90% of the people polled say that suicide is a preventable thing. So, so being able to talk about it, and I'm not saying personally I was in that position when I came to you for Era of You. I feel like I'm actually in a very good place, but having this opportunity to be able to speak about it and put some of those emotions out there, I feel like you're in a position to help a lot of people. So,
well, thank you. And again, I wasn't suggesting that you were in that position necessarily, but the fact that you're leaning into you,
not any longer,
which is good. Which is good.
I almost drank myself to death. I had in 2017 an alcoholic seizure that broke my back, and I bit almost my whole tongue off. And if my lady hadn't called 911 that night, I wouldn't be here talking to you. So it's very real to me, and I felt like I was in a rut, not just with my emotions, but with work. And I feel like a lot of people can identify with just being in they feel like they're always in a pressure to perform situation. And now everything is amplified with the internet. People see everything you do. They, criticize every remark, and, nobody wants to be seen as weak, and by talking about it, we need to get past that it's not a weak thing to talk about. It's actually, could save someone's life, whether it's be you or someone that is close to you. So, anyway.
Well, I like to say that I believe that the 4 primary causes of suffering internally come in 4 places. And it's the things that are left unsaid, the things we lack permission to feel or say, the things we lack the words to articulate, or the things that are left undone. And so one of the core concepts that we teach around is this idea of embracing pain to avoid suffering. And so by no means am I going to go down that pattern right now, because you asked me a very specific question around triggers, and I took us on a sidebar for a second. I'm going to come full circle.
This is what it's all about, man.
Yeah, I'm going to come full circle to your question. But the thing that I really, really want to call attention to is what you just said. Talking about it actually alleviates suffering. And at the end of the day, what we're all trying to do is to escape these patterns that have kept us in the self-defeating path, and from allowing ourselves to connect at the deepest level with who we are. And so you are a perfect example of someone who chose to embrace the pain, to lean into an opportunity with Era of You to avoid the suffering of potentially being on a path that you might not recover from. And not that you were that bad in that moment, but you consistently show up. You consistently make yourself vulnerable. And you are now, and you even said this, hey, man, I'm not one that would come in and normally be vulnerable. But yet those 9 and 10 minute videos that we got from you in the group as we were actually having this challenge last week were very vulnerable. And you owning your truth gave others permission to live theirs. And so just by articulating it, you've not only reduced the suffering for yourself, but you've actually reduced the suffering for others, because you've given someone else permission to feel or say something that they might not have otherwise. So I want to hit on that. That's where I think so much of these things come from. But your question is a great one. For those who don't know that they're in this place, how do they identify it? How do they reconcile and understand the patterns that take place, and so that they can actually move through it? We're not going to go deep on Inside Out today. But what I really want to hit is, you asked me to specifically define triggers as we see it. And triggers.
The reason B, I think, the reason I brought up the triggers is I think that, some of the underlying issues people deal with, and they pile up and pile up and pile up. And it's these triggers, and someone makes that decision in the moment, and if we can get somebody to pause and take a breath. And that's why I wanted you to touch on the triggers specifically.
Yeah, triggers. I believe that the things that, look, here's the deal. So most of us think that we're stuck because we have the wrong strategy and tactics in our life. If we just go by the next 7-step system, if we can get X amount of money, if we can learn how to do Y, then we're going to all of a sudden be free. And those are critically important in our lives, but that's not what keeps us stuck. What keeps us stuck is a combination of emotional triggers, behavioral patterns, and environmental conditioning. And so triggers, as we define them, triggers are unprocessed and unrooted prior events that develop patterns causing us to project feelings and emotions into the present moment. It's those times when you're interacting with a spouse or a loved one, and all of a sudden you shrink down and you feel small, and you're not really wanting to move forward. And it has nothing to do with that exact moment, nothing to do with how that person looked at you, and everything to do with how your grandma looked at you when you were 6. The reality of it is that these things are so deeply ingrained in us. And I genuinely believe that the tip of the spear of the things that keep us stuck is the emotional triggers, which is why that's where we start. And so what I know is that people understand the difference between how we would label positive and negative emotions, right? We know what it feels like to be happy. We know what it feels like to be filled with joy. We know what it feels like to be connected. We know what it feels like to feel worthy. We know what it feels like to literally have energy flowing through us and wanting to go through an activity, and we'll spend 8 hours doing it and it feels like one, because we're just so dialed and in flow and it's so in alignment with who we are. We also know the other side. We know what it's like to feel anxious. We know what it's like to feel depressed, unworthy, isolated, lonely, scarce, right? All of these things. We know these emotions, yet we don't take the time to actually pay attention to what we're feeling in any given moment. To your whole point, the world has taught us to reduce, eliminate, or avoid pain at all costs. Show up with a smile on, move fast, and make sure that whatever you're feeling, you better shove that shit down, because it's not appropriate in any part of our world to actually be talking about that. You know, one of the things that we talk about, and I always credit Brene Brown for helping me understand this, but Brene Brown outlined that the 1945 field book for the U.S. Army actually had over 140 references to the human experience, emotions, patterns, issues in how somebody might deal with trauma, PTSD, making sure that we're battlefield ready. Our current field book, 0. Tactical leadership, situational leadership, right? It all is about now all of a sudden dehumanizing the people that are actually putting us in the positions to be free. So if we understand this, we know that this is how it looks, then what we need to start to pay attention to is not only have we lost the art of thinking, we've lost the art of feeling. We need to not only learn how to think a little bit better and more critically, but we need to learn how to feel. And the most important journey that we can take is the connection of the 18-inch journey between our head and our heart. What I know for a fact is that individuals who believe that it's just a strong mental narrative, strong mental toughness that's going to get them through life, it's only part of the equation. And I know this from personal experience because I did it and I failed miserably. My narrative did not serve me. In fact, it kept me isolated and alone in the time when I needed people the most. Those that reach the highest level of performance are those that understand their intellectual and emotional narratives and understand how to balance and regulate between them, how to connect into both, because they both lie to us. And so if we understand these negative emotions that we experience, how often do we actually walk in, interact with a spouse, and all of a sudden we just feel disgusting or yucky? We feel not worthy. We feel triggered. We feel defensive. We feel alone. And it probably has nothing to do with the interaction with the spouse, but everything to do with the trigger that was connected to it and the pattern that's been developed in that relationship as a result of it. And so one of the ways that we work with people is recognizing that the only way that we can actually effectively move through these things is to actually put in the time to feel so that we can heal. Now, I'm not sitting here and telling everybody, like, just sit in a corner and just feel all day, every day. No, I think that most things need containers. But we need to allow ourselves the ability to feel. We need to put ourselves into those containers to give ourselves permission to understand what's actually going on in our body. And so the Inside Out method really goes through 4 basic ideas. This is not a 4-step system for success because it looks different for everybody. But we have to first become aware of the emotion or emotions that are impacting our lives, right? And the reality of it is so many of us, myself included, have numbed in different periods because we didn't feel connected. We didn't feel like we were part of the group. So to change who I was in certain scenarios and environments where I didn't feel like I fit in, I would drink to change who I was because it would allow me to bring my wall down so that I could connect with others. But really what was happening is I was creating damage because the negative parts of my personality also came out when I drank. But I had to change who I was in those environments, numbed myself. And so that was a great indicator in that every time I would go into that scenario, I wouldn't feel good. I'd feel like I had some anxiety, some scarcity, lack of connection, not feeling like I was going to fit in. So when we feel the negative emotions, we're so conditioned to shove them down that most people don't even know they're there. So the whole point to your question is we have to first become aware. We have to raise our level of awareness in the way that we actually see these things so that we can move through them. Starts with awareness. Then we have to take ownership. Most of the time our triggers cause us to create damage, right? Because we react. And I always say that we can allow our emotional triggers to pull us, causing us to react and create damage, or we can pull the trigger on our emotional triggers, causing us to respond, giving no need to repair any damage because none was created. And so our triggers literally pull us out of our current moment and into these prior periods. We have to first become aware. Then we have to own the fact that we might have created damage as a result of it. You know, I often tell a story about how my wife would ask me what we're doing with the kids over the weekend. And I would just sit here and say, oh man, that's great. In my own head though, as she said it, I heard through my own shame filter, hey, you haven't done enough to be a good husband and father in our lives recently. So how are you going to make up for it this weekend? And I'd get defensive and I'd react and I'd rattle off the 10 things I'd done in the prior 4 days to show that I was a good husband and father, to show her, to prove to her that I wasn't, when that wasn't even what she asked. right? But it made me feel yucky. It made me feel disgusting. And yes, I use yucky. I've got 2 kids, 6 and 8. So I talk yucky, I talk potty, I use those words. I'm a dad. I'm a husband and father first, right? But anytime I would feel that misalignment in my own energy is now my ability to pause because I was creating damage as a result of it. We talk about this unrooting process, and I'm not going to go deep on this today because the reality of it is awareness and ownership are the first 2 most fundamental steps. But until we actually effectively unroot these emotions, we cannot move through them. And the last step is we teach people how to move. We teach them to identify how it moves in their body, how it moves through their world, and how do they move through it. And so the first point is to put yourself into the present moment and raise your level of awareness. Our minds process 11 million bits of information per second, but we're only consciously aware of about 40, Tommy. That means we largely live in the unconscious, right? Which is no wonder that most people feel like the victims, feel like life is fate, feel like they have no influence or control over their destinies. Because until we move the unconscious to the conscious, the unaware to the aware, we cannot have influence and control over our lives, our destinies, and who we are. And so hopefully that helped answer your question, brother. Any other further questions as we wrap up here quickly?
No, we can wrap up. I want to say again, thank the Lord and thank you guys for being here, allowing me this platform and really working with me. It's been a blessing. Thank you very much.
Well, Tommy, thank you very much, brother.
Your whole team, everybody. So
thank you. I'm blessed to be surrounded by just incredible people. And, this mission to impact 1 billion lives takes place one life at a time, but it also doesn't happen without a bunch of effort in a bunch of different directions, which is why we say collective impact. And you now, brother, I know are going to be somebody to be a part of that collective impact because the lessons that you've extracted from a place of awareness and how you're going to be intentional in applying them in your own life is not only going to shorten your own curve to learning, but you're going to give others permission to actually lean in and do the work that's necessary. And so for that, I want to commend you and thank you for how you continue to show up, brother.
Thank you. Appreciate being here.
All right, Tommy. Well, we will talk soon, brother. I'm going to wrap up on a couple other points here. So Tommy joined us for Era of You Challenge. We've actually gotten so many inquiries this week on individuals who are asking when we're going to do it again, how they can go in and actually take advantage of it. And so here's the thing. The actual challenge is done, but we're going to be keeping the private group up. We are going to keep the videos up. We're going to keep the engagement, the homework assignments, and all of those things up in this group at least through the end of the month. And so if you're in a position where you'd like to be able to go in and actually utilize this, it's $8, everybody. And the $8 is being 100% donated to charity. We're actually supporting it with an organization that helps feed, clothe, house, and heal individuals holistically. That's what they do. They're so in alignment with who we are that it made sense to have collective impact, not only to be able to serve the individuals that come into this room, but to also be able to have the event itself create impact. I will tell you, Tommy sent me a message yesterday. I actually got this message from about 4 people that were in it. And they said, man, $8, the value that was delivered for the $8 investment was way out of line. Obviously from a place that they benefited from it. And that was something that I took with a great deal of pride because we always want to underpromise and overdeliver. That's one thing that we really, really care about. Because again, it's about not only showing up, but how do we show up and where do we show up and how do we do that consistently? So brianbogert.com/Era of You Challenge. You can also go to eraofyouchallenge.com directly. That's another place that you can access it there. And then I just wanted to say thank you to everybody. Those people who tuned in live, I already had some comments. I saw Christopher Alvarez saying he was one of the first ones here. Thank you so much. If you're watching this on the replay, please go ahead and make sure that you put a comment down below saying that you watched it on replay. We will be responding to questions. If you've got questions about what we're talking about, we're going to continue to engage and add value in this stream. And so by all means, please comment below. You can also reach out to me. You can text me at 602-704-5189 or email me at brian@brianbogert.com. If you're watching on social media, which I'm sure you are because we're on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, we also have 2 live shows on Instagram, one on Monday mornings at 8 Pacific time, 8 a.m. Pacific time, and one on Fridays at 9:15 Pacific time. I just want to say thank you. Text me at 602-704-5189. Email brian@brianbogert.com. The other thing that we're in the process right now of actually working through is a transition into one of the group programs that we've developed to be able to create those safe containers for other people. We are launching 2 new groups in June. And if you're interested in learning more about that, shoot me an email, shoot me a text. We can get you an information. Or if you just want to get a little high-level understanding of what it is, and we can give more depth afterwards, go to nolimitsus.com to learn a little bit more about what we are doing in that program. It's something that we are seeing transformation, we are seeing growth, and we are seeing impact holistically in people's lives. So today was a really solid start. We've got a really stacked deck of guests that are going to be coming in, again, to have fun, to feature, to coach, and to create content on Wednesdays for you. If you have questions, if you have anything you'd like us to be answered, if you would like to come in one of those segments to actually be able to help create content and impact for other people, by all means, again, shoot me a text, send us an email, and we will get you in the process to get going on that as well. Until next time, everyone, be great and be you.